Something else that's really weird too about the way that we're encouraging this war and instability in Mexico is that as well as funding having the supply, the demand here in our country for these drugs, we're also I think we export 50% of the world's weapons out of our country.
Yeah.
And so we sell all of our weapons to, through people in Mexico, and then, pretty much, so we give them the guns, and then we give them the money, or the drugs to fund, to pay for the guns, and then we're not taking any responsibility whatsoever for our actions as a nation.
Yeah, it seems like as a nation, America in general, on many, many issues, or our government doesn't want to get to the root cause of a lot of our problems. We keep talking about, we never really think and try to understand what the root cause. I mean, like terrorism or it's the same kind of thing.
It's very superficial. I mean, we even have, the great minds of our time, like Albert Einstein, who said the prestige of government has undoubtedly been lowered considerably by the Prohibition Law, for nothing is more destructive of respect for the government and law of the land than passing laws which cannot be enforced.
Right.
And so
I think another important point in terms of the drug policies is that, when we're imprisoning all these people, 1 out of every 100 Americans, and a lot of them are nonviolent drug offenders. We're impoverishing these families and children, and we're impoverishing our communities. We're impoverishing our nation. When you split families apart for something that's arguably they shouldn't go to jail for, small possession, you're impoverishing that family. You send one of the breadwinners to jail, and those children are going to be far worse off. Their opportunities are going to go way down. And I think it's really a crime.
That is true, and that is really indicative of the story of the whole drug war. The drug war has been a war on the American people, and especially the impoverished communities in America.
Right.
I'll say definitely the minorities in America.
Black people are much
African
higher
Americans and Hispanics, definitely.
Right.
I think as we understand the humanitarian crisis that we've created through these draconian policies, hopefully we will embrace policies that are more compassionate, more understanding of the issues. Otherwise, we're going to completely miss the point on why we've impoverished and hurt so many people through the drug war.
Right. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? The crack cocaine laws versus the coke laws. I think you go to jail for 20 times longer for crack. 50 times longer, and it's usually people in black communities that are getting in trouble for crack violations. So it's almost, it could be argued, it's sort of a racist disparity in a way, but I think what's interesting is that an interesting point too is that, if a poor person gets in trouble for minor possession, they're probably going to get the full force of the law, but if you have a lot of money, you can get a good lawyer, you can get out of things. So it's really not right.
You can see the racism right there with the disparity between cocaine and crack cocaine, especially with the mandatory minimums on crack cocaine. You're sending people who are very poor to prison for over 20 years, and they have the judges have to do it. So it's not that they necessarily have to, and the judges have asked state legislatures to change these laws, but with the mandatory minimums now, we're sending people away forever, and they're not getting the help that they need.
I've heard a statistic that 1 in 3 black men will go to jail in his lifetime. 1 out of every 3 black men. That's insane to me for a drug offense, I think. And so, or maybe that's all offenses. But anyway, I think it's important that we're targeting these poor communities, especially. The drug laws are disproportionately impacting poor communities, and then these poor people go to jail. And then when they come out, they're going to be impoverished further because it's harder to get a job if you've had drug offenses. You can't go back to college. So we're entrenching people in poverty with our drug laws.
And this is basically why we've started grassroots level campaigns in our areas to address these kind of concerns. And like with the SAFER initiative, with the low priorities, it's very relevant, and we've seen this even recently on our campuses. Just this first month of this semester here at the U of A, with rapes occurring on campus that are alcohol induced,
right.
And it's no coincidence that these are occurring at the time when the height of alcohol use and abuse is taking place.
Yeah, and that really boggles my mind that 2 of the most dangerous drugs that we know of, alcohol and cigarettes, are legal and taxed, and cannabis is arguably one of the safest substances, and it's completely illegal. You can go to jail for it. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy that the messages we're sending to our children. We're saying, these drugs are bad, but these drugs are good. Alcohol and tobacco are good drugs. When we know that 400,000 people a year die from cigarettes and tens of thousands from alcohol, and a lot of domestic violence is caused by alcohol. I mean, if 400,000 people a year are dying from cigarettes, I mean, 3,000 people died on 9/11 was a tragedy. Well, 400,000 are dying every year from cigarettes. So it's like, I mean, we go nuts over, terrorism, but we have these drugs. I mean,
1,500 people die from aspirin every year, right? How many people die from marijuana?
I've heard
in over 5,000
right?
years of recorded medical history, 0 people have died from marijuana.
Right. Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, it's being shown through our policies.
I think a lot of young people understand that our government is hypocritical in that way, and it's sort of. I think that could drive people to like saying, not respecting government's laws.
Yeah, it's undermining the authority.
Yeah, undermine. If you have no moral authority, if you're hypocritical, then
right. It's I mean, you can look at music industry, you can look at all kinds of people since the '60s all the way up until now, and see that the respect for law is very much diminished.
Right.
Because you're like, well, as this person used to be a civil servant, somebody you look to for help, you're now viewing this person as a threat, as somebody that you need to look out for, not somebody who's really beneficial to your society or your immediate families.
Well,
so can we? I just wondered if we could talk briefly about some policy alternatives, because we've exposed all the problems with prohibition, but we haven't really offered any alternatives.
What do you think?
Legalize.
I know that you're a strong proponent of legalization, and I personally lean that way too. But like I mentioned before, this decriminalization policy in Portugal. Well, first of all, I think it's important to define the difference between legalization, decriminalization, and depenalization. Legalization means there is no criminal sanctions whatsoever for the use of and sale, I believe, of drugs.
Unless you're not paying taxes if you have to.
Right. Decriminalization, however, it is still a crime. However, there are no sanctions. There's no prison time that comes with violation of the drug laws. You are often issued citations. That's the most common way for dealing with it. Depenalization is something most of the EU has adopted, where it's still illegal, it's still criminally illegal, but they don't seek prison sentences for drug possession. And what Portugal has done is they've decriminalized it, so the use of drugs is permitted. You will be cited. You'll in general have to pay a fine if you're caught using drugs. However, there's no prison sentence that comes along with drug use. It is, however, still illegal to sell drugs or to provide them to minors or the mentally handicapped in any fashion.
Well, the reason I'm more for legalization rather than decriminalization, in Arkansas, an ounce or less is a misdemeanor. If you have more than an ounce, then it's an automatic felony in the state of Arkansas. So, people are still going to be going to prison over 2 ounces, over 3 plants in their closet, I mean, where does the marijuana come from? Obviously, people are getting the marijuana from somewhere. And so the system exists, but yet we're going to let somebody get away with an ounce, but not kind of turn our back to where it came from. So I think a legalization is the only real, realistic approach to dealing with the drug.
Well, and I agree too, and I think part of it is that especially legalizing, because we can tax it, and we could raise billions of dollars in revenue. And I also wanted to add something else. I think in terms of, I mean, we talk a lot about marijuana, the substance you would smoke or something, but what's not talked much about is the hemp fiber. And I was at the Cannabis Revival with you, and I remember you gave a speech and you spoke eloquently about all the uses for hemp. Do you think you could recap some of those uses?
Yeah, I mean, hemp's been around for thousands of years. It's most of the time when people think of hemp, they think of cloth and paper and rope. Right. But I mean, there's a lot of cutting-edge products, bioplastics. You can make biofuel off of it. You can make concrete. You can essentially design an entire building based out of hemp, essentially, except for the glass and the steel. Right. I mean, plumbing, piping, electrical wire casing, carpet. It's over 50,000 products, and this was called the $1 billion crop in like a 1930s Popular Science magazine article. Right. And then
George Washington grew it, right?
George Washington, Thomas Jefferson both grew hemp. It was actually mandatory for the 13 colonies to grow hemp as an agricultural crop. Many of the farmers in America are asking for hemp to be legalized. They need a third rotational crop, and it's very profitable. It's stronger than steel and tension. It's one of the most amazing plants that we have on the face of the earth, and we are the only industrialized nation in the world that is not allowed to grow it.